Combe Mill. Testing our video. Just want to get like a couple of shots of around the building first, so I can, when I edit it, I can put it all together. The sequence goes on it. How you feeling, Stu?
Alright.
Think we're going to get a lot of activity tonight?
Apprehensive? Yeah, I think it'll be a good night.
You actually picking up on anything at all, or?
Well, I didn't when we first arrived, but now I am starting to get a bit of a,
Yeah?
sort of a feeling.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it'd be interesting. I do think it'd be interesting. I think once it starts to get a bit darker as well, and the more people there is, we've got more energy. I think, I think quite a lot will be picked up, I think.
Yeah, so basically what you got, Stu, when you go through the green door there, that's obviously where the wheel is to spin the water, the big one. There's 2 flights of stairs that actually go up.
Oh, right. So this part here, is that joined to that? Yeah. Or is it this building and that?
I thought, okay, then I need to explain not only what is a ghost, but what does the word mean? Now, come on, you're all ghost hunters, aren't you? You all been, what's it mean, ghost? G-H-O-S-T. What does it mean? Come on, I'm trying to ghost hunters. You're here tonight hoping you're going to see a ghost, sense a ghost. You have a ghost in the back of your car.
I guess we just don't know, do we?
What does the word mean?
I'm assuming it's
Somebody-
an anachronism for something.
No, if you go to the Oxford English Dictionary, and it says the spirit and soul of the disembodied spirit or soul of a dead person. Okay? No, afraid not. It's well over 3,000-year-old word, Proto-Indo-European, Goizd, G-H-O-I-D-Z. Goizd, what does it mean? To be frightened of.
Wow.
That's it. Oh, come on, yeah, right, okay. So anything we don't understand that sits in the back seat of your car, that walks up the landing but you don't see it, but you hear it, walks through the wall, pulls the hat off, switches the lights off, affects your computer, keep going. We don't understand it, we're frightened of it. It's as simple as that. From that word came the Middle English word, Ghost, G-O-S-T, the Old English word, Gast, the Flemish word, Geest, the Saxon German word Geist, of course, where poltergeist comes from. They all come from this Proto-Indo-European word Goizd, meaning to be frightened of. When William Caxton came over here, 1400s was it? 1500s? I'm not sure, whatever. 1400s, from Holland, I think, Holland, Belgium, whichever. Brought his printing press with him, and he took the Middle English word Ghost, G-O-S-T, but he gave it a silent H, because that's the Flemish way of spelling it. And we got a ghost. End of story. Not quite. What about the Old English word? Ghast. Have you ever been aghast at something? Have you ever seen something ghastly? It's frightening.
Yeah.
That's it. Guys, do you realise we're still in the Middle Ages as regards ghosts? We're frightened of all these things that we see and hear and sense and feel because we don't understand it, and so we label it a ghost. I would like to change the name to energy. Because that's what it is, it's an energy source that is around, that occupies things, that leaves the body, the vessel on point of death, goes somewhere. Don't ask me where. I don't think it goes up there, and I don't think it goes down there, but I think it goes to another dimension, another spiritual plane, another spiritual level, another frequency. It goes somewhere. Because as Einstein told us many, many years ago, you can't destroy energy.
Yeah, you can.
You can alter its state. And someone did sort of piss on my bonfire a few months ago and said, well, yeah, it just goes into the ground and fertilises daffodils. But no, that's not. That's the rotting vessel that held the energy, that contained the energy, that leaves the body on point of death. I'm convinced of that. It's absolutely definite, because I mean, they've been experimenting in Russia for years, weighing bodies, people, on point of death, and they all lose 21 grams of weight on point of death. Not evacuation of the body, something that leaves the, it's about an ounce, isn't it, 21 grams, I think. Something leaves the body on point of death. And the other bit to add to that, our thoughts have frequencies, and frequencies have weight. Now that means genuinely that we're actually not that far from Star Wars and use the Force, because we are mentally capable of moving things. In the same way as when Einstein told us that light actually doesn't have weight, does it? But when light hits mass, it causes it to move. And that's why space probes have light sails. Because when light... So, in other words, it's an energy thing. It's an energy thing that leaves the body on point of death and goes somewhere. I'm still going to call them ghosts, because that's what we all, you know. But basically, I think there's two categories in this. Number one, and this is only me, it could be, I say 40% of ghosts are the spirit and soul of a dead person, an intelligence that has left the body and hasn't gone to where they should go, either through an accident, because they didn't, they sort of went off at a tangent when they should have been going down the tunnel, I don't know, or there's a reason why they're still around, because most of them have gone. Most of them are quite happy somewhere else. I don't believe in the granddads up there, 30,000, how far up there? Where is this heaven? You know, when did you last fly at 30,000 feet, look out the window and see an angel floating past you? You won't. And when did you last go up Mount Etna or Vesuvius and peer down and see some guy clocking off from stoking the boiler up and coming out for a day off from hell? Because they don't, because they're not, but they are somewhere. But most of them have happily gone, and I think can come back if you need them, if you're in trouble, if they haven't seen the grandchild, and they come back, and I've got loads and loads and loads of instances of things like that people tell me about. The old lady, Mummy, why does that old lady come in my bedroom at night? What old lady? Well, the old lady that she comes and sits on my bed and talks to me, and you know, she's got a bit of imagination, little girl. Like, yes, all of that. You know, 35% of kids under the age of 6 have imaginary friends, as we call them. Yeah, no, they haven't. They're seeing ghosts. And then Christmas comes round, and the photograph album comes out, and the little girl goes, Mummy, that's the lady. And she goes,
hear that so many times, don't you?
over and over and over and over. Belter the other week from a lady was telling me, can't get the story quite right, but she was getting married again for the second time, and her little boy was at the wedding, of course, and after the wedding they were looking at photographs, or sometime afterwards, and she said, Mummy, that's the man that walked you down the aisle. And it was a dead dad, his granddad that he'd never met. Wow, you know, I mean, that sort of stuff. This is real, you know, this is absolutely real. So 40% are an intelligence. I think the other 60% is a recording held in the fabric of the building.
Stone tape.
Stone tape.
Yeah.
My huge thing on stone, which I will bore you with for the next 20 minutes or something like that. So 40% are here for a reason. They've got unfinished business. One of my many phrases that I'm sure you've probably laid to rest. Do you realise how important that was then? Not now, but then. 6 foot of English earth, the gravestone with your name on it, the family around the grave, Christian or whatever burial service, to, as the Americans call it, closure, to lay to rest. If you're not at rest, you're still abroad, you're still around. So they were murdered and no one found the murderer. They were executed for a crime they didn't commit. They had a job or profession or hobby that meant so much to them over here that it was their life. Fred, George, same machine, same saw, same whatever, 40 years in the same factory, never married. It was his life. He was first in the morning, last out at night, worked overtime, nothing to go home for. Dies, doesn't move on, still here. Same with the car, same thing. You know, they actually don't move on from the car because they loved it so much. Number 2, they don't know they're dead. Youngsters especially. Children, teenagers, the whole of their life in front of them. Airmen on airfields, young airmen from the Second World War. There's so many haunted airfields around this country that have young airmen that crashed at 350 miles an hour, they're blown to bits, didn't even get time to blink, never mind prepare themselves for death. And the poor lad spends the rest of eternity walking across the apron of the airfield, always in the same direction, towards the control tower, for orders, for help. Is the war still on? I know it was a bad landing, but you know, can I have another go? Can I have another Spitfire? You know, they don't know they're dead. Of course, battlefields. I mean, the most underestimated haunted sites on the planet, because they have all the ingredients to create a haunting. Murder, suicide, young lad of 17 or 18 crawling away, crying for his mum, dies in a ditch, body never found, no closure for him. And it's only since reenactment came on the scene that ghost stories have started to come from battlefields. Because before then, the only person that saw the ghost was the farmer, or the fellow walking his dog. But now, we reenactors seem to become trigger objects. Yeah?
We had some good ones at Colby Cup, didn't
Really?
Oh.
Ghosts. Yeah, there you go, you see?
we? Yeah.
You know, I mean, basically, they see a guy in a red tunic, or the lad does, that's been waiting for 300 years, 200 years. It's my platoon, it's my... They're back. They always become ghosts to each other.
Yeah.
And it happens over and over and over and over, and that's another one I'm working on, is trying to create a battlefield ghost. Because there's so much good stuff there, you know. So they don't know they're dead, that's a big one. There's a fascinating thing about airfields in this country, that the Royal Air Force, Ministry of Defence, there's an unwritten law that actually states that any RAF personnel, including dog handlers, that refuse to go into the haunted part of the building, they will not be put on a charge. That's how seriously the Ministry of Defence accept the fact that there are ghosts on their airfields. So that's 2. Number 3, hang on, don't know the dirt, unfinished business. Like it here. Love the place. It was his life. He was the manager, the owner, worked there, loved it. Houses, cottages, with ghosts of old ladies and old blokes that still think they live there, that haven't moved on. And that's when normally someone starts nodding or smiling, you know, oh yeah, and I get lots of calls, people say, well, we bought this house only 3 years ago, no ghosts in it, anything silly like that. It's a lovely house, but all of a sudden, the last couple of months, there's problems have started, and there's an old lady that appears in the bed, bothering the kids, and she's moving things, and she doesn't seem very happy. And I always ask the question, are you doing any work in the house? Oh, funnily enough, yes, it ties in when the old lady started to appear. We're having the wall knocked out of there, we're having an extension put in with that awful Victorian wallpaper taken off the bedroom. That's hers. That was her pride and joy, that wallpaper. She can't understand what you're doing in her house. Because she's in her own dimension or time zone, still thinks she's there. And because I could bore you for hours with stories about. One of the best ones was Lady on the Ghost Walk a couple of years ago. It's my first house was haunted. She said, number 24 Stanley Street in Derby. And she said, a terraced house. She says, I couldn't afford the rent alone, not the rent, the mortgage. So I brought 2 girls in to have a bedroom each. And she said everything was all right until one of the girls started bringing a lad back for the night. Not having that going on in my house, right? I said the 2 of them were in bed one night about 3 o'clock in the morning, and this crescendo of a noise started up in the bedroom as if someone was throwing the wardrobe around. Frightened them to death. And the 2 of them sat up, bolt upright in bed, light on, looking round. Nothing out of place. Then, between the 2 of them, they heard this voice say, "This used to be my bedroom." That she said, gone. Gone.
Yeah.
Car, never came back, never saw him again. But she said it got worse when the same young lady painted the bedroom pink. I'm not having my bedroom pink. It's quite all right, is it? Yeah. She didn't want it painting pink. I mean, this is unbelievable, but these are ordinary, rational people. telling me these accounts, not stories. So lots of stories of houses and people that you know occupy the houses because they're just not moved on. And then the big one, this is my pet of all time. Question for you. Have you ever heard of the ghost of a caveman?
Not really, no.
There is one in Dorset, on the Dorset Wolds, that's seen galloping across the Wolds on a horse with a cloak flying and a stone club or something. Yeah, but anyway, but think about it. There's almost, as people say, why don't we see ghosts of dinosaurs? And but cavemen especially. And then the next question I would ask you is, have you ever heard of the ghost of a young lad wearing a hoodie,
Yeah, never.
smoking a joint, with his arse hanging out of his jeans, walking through a council house wall? No, very many. Again, I'm not saying there's not
yet.
there are, but there's not many. So there's a big period in between then and now, and in between Romans and Saxons, not Vikings, but Romans and Saxons and medieval and Tudors and Stuarts and Edward, keep going. And basically something raised its ugly head on this planet 2,000 years ago that's created a lot of ghosts.
Yeah.
Yeah, Christianity. Not religion, because we've always had religion. We've always worshipped some form of God, but 2,000 years ago the Emperor Constantine, the Roman Emperor, whose mother just happened to be St. Helen, keeper of the cross, a good Christian, he realised that mum's form of religion was going somewhere, and he hijacked it. Literally hijacked it and called it the Roman Church. And invented all the terrors.
Well, the Romans have always invented and usurped.
Thank you, absolutely, yeah. And so he hijacked the church, called it the Roman Church, depicted Jesus Christ as a Roman centurion apparently at the beginning, and invented all, because it was an easy way of controlling us. Much easier than swords and spears. Terror. Fear. So he invented the 10 Commandments, the 7 deadly sins, the 4 mortal sins, Judgment Day, Purgatory, Hellfire, Damnation, Beelzebub, Baal, the devil, demons, the Antichrist, witches, and
Then he had lunch.
then he started again. But think about it. And we then were terrified. And it wasn't death that was the problem, it was the afterlife. It was the fear of what happened next. So you've committed a mortal sin. You've broken one of the 10 commandments. Where are you going to go? Do not pass go. Just go straight to hell and burn in hellfire at 10,000 degrees centigrade for eternity, with gnashing of teeth and ripping of flesh and all the terrors of Dante's Inferno. Would you try it on with St. Peter knowing you're not going to get in? Would you burn in hell? I'll stop here, thank you. Look, if the old lady can stay because she liked the pink flock wallpaper in her bedroom, I'm pretty sure some guy can stay behind because he's frightened of burning in hell at 10,000 degrees centigrade. And it's created, and I say, a lot of ghosts. And it got worse when Henry VIII nicked the church. Because of Calvinism and all of that, when that came on the scene, that created problems. Because as a good Catholic, you'd always got confession. So, forgive me, Father, I have sinned. 3 Hail Marys, a few bob in the collection box,
You're away.
and away you go again, kid, do it again. But as a Protestant, you've had it, kid. Once you've committed that crime, you're destined for hell and there's no going back. And so from Tudor times onwards, there are more ghosts. It's a fact, I can't...
Well, that's why Henry VIII, he was born Catholic, then he had a little bit in the middle of being Protestant, then when he died, he was Catholic.
He paid 2 Cluniac monks to pray for his quick exit through purgatory. And so did Charles II. Turned back to the faith at the end of the day because they were terrified of divine retribution and hellfire and damnation. That's meant so much to people in those. And I swear to you, I'm convinced that that's why there's so many religious ghosts, so many monks and nuns and vicars and tarts. No, not tarts. Because they were terrified of changing sides. And they thought they'd go to hell, so they stayed behind. And they still wander in the monasteries and the nunneries and the cloisters because they don't move on. It is, honestly, it's a theory. So anyway, that's done the 40%. Am I all right? Are you... Stop me when you...
No, that's fine. No, carry on. Yeah,
Fine.
carry on, Richard. Please
Good.
do. Mate. Yeah.
Good. The other 60%, and that's only it could be 59% and 41%. Oh, I don't know. I think the vast majority of ghosts or a recording held in the fabric of the building. It's not an intelligence, it can't interact with you, and it doesn't know you're there. And I believe that that makes up a big percentage. And the theory is, are you ready? Sandstone, like, I call it the stone tape, because that was a programme in the 70s, TV programme. And when I mention this to anybody, I'll get rubbish, that was a stupid TV programme. So really I should probably change the name to silica, the silica tape theory, the bricks and mortar, the crystal tape theory, the water theory, and something like that. But I still like the stone tape theory. Sandstone, limestone, granite, clay, bricks, glass, quartz, crystal, cement, sand, concrete, porcelain, they're all made of silica. And silica makes up the whole of the Earth's crust. Because half the Earth's crust is made up of oxygen, which is negative, and the other half of the Earth's crust is made up of silicon, which is positive. And when the two come together, they create silicon dioxide, SiO2, silica. That's silica. Everything, that's silica. That building over there is silica. What's your microchips made of in your computer? What sort of chips are they? Oven chips? Potato chips? Silicon chips? Oh, hang on, we're halfway there. What do they hold?
Memory.
Memory. Data.
There's a bit of a flaw in that.
Go on then. There's silica in the floor as well.
There's another theory that this whole world and us are actually 99% empty, made of nothing.
Okay. Hang on.
Come in.
I know. It's back to this holographic jobby. I know. And entanglement and all sorts of other things. But at the moment, because that's not been proved either, I still think that silica there is pretty solid. But I don't. Yeah. So.
It's liquid.
Yeah. It was.
It is now.
Well, but it's now hardened. But it's
Yeah, it's flowing.
Yeah. Come on, tell me more like this. Keep going.
400 years time, that top's going to be that thick and the bottom's going to be that thick.
Of the glass?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's flowing. Old glass can always be measured.
You see, this is what it's all about. No, this is awesome. Go on, tell me what is it. So it's moved. So, but basically, it's not alive.
Yeah, I was just saying. I'm just splitting hairs here.
It's oscillating as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because all quartz, crystal, that's the negatives and positives. You see, in silica, that's quartz crystal.
And atoms are not stationary anyway; they're always moving.
Yeah.
They're always
So
there.
it's an energy. It's back to almost energy. So your microchips made of silicon hold memory, right? Now, and silica is a semiconductor. Add to that the fact that the red of the sandstone in the castle, the stately home, the cottage, the red of the sandstone, the red of the clay in the ground, that means the red of the clay in the bricks, the more iron oxide there is in it, which is rust, which is magnetic. Now, who'd have thought 100 years ago that I could have got a piece of sticky silica tape, acetate, and sprinkled iron oxide particles onto it, and I could record onto it. It's cassette. It's a videotape. It's the same as a brick wall, because it contains silica and iron oxide, and all those particles that are in it are all jumbled up until someone passes an electromagnetic charge across it, and all the arrows go in the same direction and hold the recording. So does a brick wall. So does a stone wall. But the problem we have is, okay, you can accept the tape holding them, but how do we make the recording how do we make the recording? I know that's probably digital, and it's not got a mini DV in it, but before that, it had a tape in it. And how do you make the recording on that camera? You have to have something inside it that makes the recording with the tape, and that's called energy. It's a battery. You switch it on, and you've got electromagnetic, and that causes the recording. Now, where do we get the energy from to cause the recording in this room now? Us. Because each one of us emits 2 kilowatts of electricity in a 24-hour cycle. Not at this moment, but in a 24-hour cycle, each one of us emits 2 kilowatts of electricity. But the big one is that we have within us a power reservoir that we can use in time of crisis. And that's where the energy comes from. And we can harness all of that adrenaline, all of that 2 kilowatts when we need it to keep us alive. You've heard stories of mothers lifting a car. I've got lots of them. One of the best ones is a soldier, a young soldier in Afghanistan about 12 years ago, driving a Land Rover, and he was blown up. He hit an IED, roadside bomb, and he was front of the convoy, and his Land Rover flipped, rolled down a bank, and ended up in a stream, upside down. He was still alive, but he was seriously injured, and he was strapped in and he couldn't get out. Single-handedly, a Royal Marine sergeant jumped out of the next vehicle, ran down the bank, and lifted the Land Rover out the stream. Yeah. No, it's in the Daily Mirror. It must be true. No, it's true. The lad's still alive, and the sergeant was given an award for saying he can't remember doing it because he couldn't do it. It's not possible for a single man to pull an upside-down Land Rover out of the stream, but he needed to, and he did. I've got another one, a copper in Derby, policeman in Derby, telling me the story last year. He was standing on a street corner in Derby 22 years ago when a Ford Cortina, a motorbike, came screaming down the road, round the bend, and lost it, and flipped. And the motorbike and the biker were going towards the policeman. And he was standing on the corner and he's crossing himself because he sees it coming towards him. Just before it hit him, a Ford Cortina came round the other way and hit the bike and landed on top of it. And the policeman's thanking God for saving his life, and then he looks at the Ford Cortina and he sees that the biker is still underneath the car with the bike, and that's when he sees the smoke coming out the engine. And that's when he single-handedly ran across the road and from the front engine lifted the Ford Cortina up on his own, and a passerby pulled the lad out from underneath it. The lad's still alive, he's in a wheelchair, but he saved his life. And the bloke said to me, the copper said to me, "Mate, it was feather light." And he says, "I've been ribbed and ribbed by my mate since to say, come on, in the car park, let's see you do it." And he says, "I can't, because it's not possible," but I did. And it's in the Derby Evening Telegraph, what the story he's given me is the article. It's fact, he did it. How? Because he needed to. And so in other words, in time of crisis, we can summon, and the most critical thing that's ever going to happen to you is death. And I don't mean 93 years of age dying in a remote nursing home. I mean the 5 ingredients that make up a haunting: murder, suicide, accidents, battles, and executions. The energy that your body is, and on a battlefield, of the energy that keeps you alive, fights to keep you alive. Because I mean, soldiers don't just die with 1 bullet through them, you know. It's probably 3, 4, 5 bullets or 28 stab wounds before you actually die, because the body has this amazing power reservoir that keeps you alive. And I believe that's the battery, the energy, the flash that makes the recording of you. And there's a question now: why aren't all ghosts stark naked? Think about it. Hey, how can you see the ghost of my coat? Does it have an energy source in it, a spirit in the sun? No, that's how I was dressed just before I died. That's why you see the Roman soldiers in Treasurer's House in York walking through as they were dressed. That's why we have the soldiers on the battlefields dressed as they were. Because it's a recording. They're not an intelligence. They never, when they see you, you do, but they just carry on walking because it's the image of a dead person. And so we refer to it as a ghost.
That's why they do the same thing over and over and over again.
They're doing this exactly. The Roman soldiers do the same thing. They've not been seen only by Harry Martin down here, they've been seen by other people in the cellar doing the same thing, because it's a record. If I was to drop a screen down now and play a cowboy film, John Wayne film, would you all run out of the building saying, "Fetch the Exorcist, we've just seen the ghost of John Wayne"? And he was dressed as he was when the recording was, actually he probably would. But, yeah, but do you understand? And I genuinely think that that is something that nobody's really taken on board. I can't prove it, but there's a couple of instances that add to it, and that's one, the most haunted house in Derby, with 14 sightings of ghosts in it, different sightings, is a place called The House. It's a Jacobean building, and it's got more recorded sightings of ghosts, reported sightings of ghosts. Guess what? It just happens to be the oldest brick-built building in Derby. When I was doing Most Haunted in California, we went to the Whaley House. It's the holy grail of ghostly haunted houses in California. More sightings of ghosts, blah blah blah. And as you know, most houses in California are wooden, most houses in America are wooden. Oh yeah, guess what? The Whaley House is the oldest brick-built house in the whole of California. Oh, and then the last bit for this, I was working on a pilot for a program called Battlefield Ghosts, and I was on the battlefield of Gettysburg in Pennsylvania with a guy who's written 9 books on the ghosts of Gettysburg. He's got over 1,000 sightings of ghosts on that battlefield alone. It's the most haunted battlefield on the planet.
Is that the one where they see like the lamps?
Oh, so many different stories that. One recently of a medium that went on the battlefield, and there was a Confederate general that was killed at Gettysburg. The Union troops pinched his body, wouldn't give it back to the Confederacy, and buried him in an unmarked grave, and this medium's found him. They've dug him up recently, and they're going to give him a proper burial in Richmond, in the capital of the Confederacy in America, in Virginia. That's unbelievable. But basically, back to the story. So Mark Nesbitt, the guide who's done all these books and everything else, I was with him, and he was telling me all about the ghosts and everything else, and how many people have seen ghosts on the battlefield and all of that. Yeah, it's got more ghostly sightings than anywhere else, and sounds. Guess what? The whole of the Gettysburg battlefield is on a red sandstone plateau. See where I'm coming from? I mean, come on. It's a possibility. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's fact. I'm saying I'm trying to give people a rational explanation rather than it's a scary ghost, it's going to get you. It's not about that. And just the last little bit, water, because this is very important for this place. It's surrounded by water. It's got water underneath it. And I'm also on the fact that water contains silica. When it rains, the water flows over the mountains, and it absorbs the silica from the sandstone, the limestone, the granite, and of course the clay. Spring water has a lot of silica in it, and you'll be buying it, trust me, after tonight. You'll be rushing out to the supermarket tomorrow. Water contains something like 6% silica in it, right? Very good for you, very, very good for you. Number of haunted sites that are wet or damp, marshlands, rivers, mills, lakes, underground streams, ancient wells, they've all of them. Bathrooms, if I live long enough, my next book's going to be called Toilet Ghosts. No, really, the haunted toilets, but they weren't toilets then, but they are now, if you know what I mean. And so there's so many different sightings to do with water. Right, we are made up of 75% water. We contain more silica in our bodies than we do iron. Our brain, ready for the punchline, our hard drive is made up of 85% water. Okay, right. We can't overdose on silica. It passes through the body. As we grow older, we do not retain as much silica in our bodies as we do when we were young. And what do we lose? Our marbles, our memory. They've been experimenting in France for 17 years, adding extra silica into the water of elderly people, and they've reduced degenerative disease, including Alzheimer's, by 11%. Right, the best one on the planet, Fiji water. They've just started selling it in Costco, and it contains more silica than any other water on the planet. And I mean it. I'm actually going to ask them if they would like me to write an article for their magazine in Cosmic and Monoxide. They'll have me on a percentage because I honestly think what I'm saying is there's flaws in it, lots of flaws in it, but I think I am giving you a sort of realistic approach to the Funnily enough, I did this talk the other week and we got a complaint afterwards. This lady said, so we spent an hour and a half or whatever it was listening to Richard Felix telling us there's no such thing as ghosts. I'm not saying there's no such thing as ghosts. I'm saying that I think 60% we mistakenly think is a ghost. It's still an energy source because it's an energy thing that caused it. But the other 40% I still think is what we want, for want of a ghost. But I'll just finish with this. Scientists won't have it. They will not have it at all. Because A, there's no funding for paranormal investigation in this country. A little bit in America, but not much over here. But next time a scientist, a guy with letters after his name, tells you there's no such thing as ghosts, quote this to him. For the last 400 years, men with letters after their names, astronomers, have peered into the night sky through their telescopes looking at ghosts. Because by the time the image of that dead star travels millions of light years to the end of his telescope, he is looking at the ghost of something that once existed. But there's no such thing as ghosts, are there? Oh yes, there are. God, what do you, I mean, come on, destroy it. Tell me the biggest load of crap you've ever heard in your life. Or am I on to something? Is there a possibility that some of it might be a rational explanation for it? We don't, I mean, energy, that's all it is, energy. When I drive home tonight, when Ed drives me home tonight, we'll get out of my drive, third of a mile, down the track, got electric gates at the end of it, Ed will press the button on his, and the gates will open on their own.
It's a miracle.
Yeah, well they do. But no, do you realise what somebody thought of that 100 years ago? We must have two ghostly gatekeepers, mustn't we? They stand at the gate. It has to be that. No, it's not. It's an energy thing. And yet we're still in the Middle Ages, terrified of things that go bump in the night, they're going to stand at the foot of the bed at 3 o'clock in the morning going, ooh, with chains rattling and fangs and horns. And
brilliant stuff.
Isn't it? That's what we want, isn't
Yeah.
it? Isn't it fascinating when you think how we haven't moved on?
No.
We really haven't. And science, you know, while we're playing Scooby-Doo, science won't take it seriously. And that's when they see programs on TV, or they you know, I approach this university or that university, and they say, that stupid man off most haunted because of ghost walks. Yeah, scaring people to death. But there is a rational explanation for it. Who knows it? And of course, the big one is that most huge discoveries on this planet have actually been made or discovered by amateurs.
Could be that.
Yes, and yet we're ridiculed by an awful lot of the public. So we're real actors. Sorry.
Sorry, do you think we can record ghosts like with photography?
Okay, right, I don't know about that. You see, I've never seen what I believe to be an absolutely genuine photograph of a ghost. You may have some, you may think they are, I don't know, and I can't say one way. But to me, the problem I've got is, because you see, I think that, okay, you're all sat here now, and we're all happily listening to Radio 2. All of us. And all of a sudden, you start listening to Radio 5 Live. Because your frequency's changing in your brain. Just as they used to do on the radio. You used to have a channel, a radio channel would burst in for a few seconds and you'd hear another channel, but this doesn't happen much now. But it did in those days when we used to tune them in on the live programme. And so all of a sudden you start, but we're still all listening to Radio 2, you're not. You're hearing a bit of Radio 5 Live. Now, that means that you're on a different frequency now. So you're hearing it, we're not. Does that mean, are we all going to say, no, you're not hearing it, because we can't hear it? And it's the same with, we're all sat here now and a figure suddenly appears at that door there and you see it and we don't. Does that mean you're not seeing it? Or does that mean that it's in your perception? Because your frequencies have changed slightly for a reason, I don't know what, you might have had an argument before you came out, your football team might have won, beaten another, and you're all, and your frequency changes for a few seconds and you see it and we don't. Now I have a problem with that. Because if there's a ghost standing there, you see it and we don't, how can we take a photograph of it? Even if you've got the camera in your hand. Because it's not attached to you. Unless you just happen to be lucky enough for the camera to be on the same frequency if cameras are, I don't know whether they are, at that moment to take a photograph of a ghost. And so I don't know whether you can take a picture of a ghost. I'm not sure. Of course I'm not sure.
Then if the ghost is energy, how can you take a picture of energy?
Exactly. But then again, we're energy, aren't we?
Yeah.
I don't, yeah,
So it's like
but, we're solid, but you said we're not solid earlier.
The alphabet is solid, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. But it's all fascinating.
Right,
But
it's
there's
really
so much room for more of this with the TV programme. I really think there is so much more out there that the public would love if we could expand on it and get somebody involved that knows what they're talking about. But then again, do they? Because they say there's no such thing. I went to do I'm going to stop because we'll take over now. I did a do at Cardiff, at St David's Hall in Cardiff, and at the end of it was in the days of Most Haunted, and I went along with another medium to do a night, and I did this, me talk and all this sort of stuff, and there were people outside waiting in the bar for books to be signed and to talk, and there was this guy, very dapper, youngish chap with his 2 kids and his wife, and and he came up to me, shook my hand and everything else, and said, I just want to say something to you, Richard. He said, I work in the science department of Cardiff University, and when you left Most Haunted, that's when most of our members of the department stopped watching the programme. And that was, to me, was absolute, because he said, I really think that you could be onto something with some of your theories. And he gave me his card for him to help, and I lost it. And I rang up, and of course he didn't give me his name. And I just said, a member of he said, well, we don't know, we've got lots of members of our science department. And I never got any farther with it. But I tried Derby University, and they don't want to know me. That's my own camp. I've had Derby declared the most haunted city in Britain, but they don't want to know me, because I'm that idiot off that silly TV programme. And I nearly got there, because that's what I need help. I do need help, psychiatric for a start, but I need help to expand on it. In other words, is there enough magnetism in a row of bricks to be able to help the silica to... I don't know!
Hey, you should, if you say the bricks are
They're magnetic.
basically the same as a chip.
Yes,
It's
yes.
basically getting that power into them to untap them to...
Oh, thank you. We've started it. We've created, me and Ed, we've created a stone tape projector. But the trouble is, I don't know how much electricity, because you see, I think, okay, stop it. You're the one with the energy, you're seeing this thing, and for some reason, you're stressed. So there's, another article in the paper, lady, I don't know if you saw her, the magnetic lady, about 2 years ago, she had spoons hanging off her chest. And oh my God, and the story was fascinating, because she said, I can't get a job with IT, because I blow up computers. I walk into a room and I blow light bulbs. And it's real, because we know that, right, but the end bit was the bit, but she said, the more stressed I get, the more light bulbs I blow. Yeah? So in other words, you're dead stressed because you had an argument, you had a car accident on the way here, and it's still there. And so your energy comes out of you and zaps the wall. And you, in other words, you press the replay button yourself with your energy. And so you saw it, we didn't, because we're all very happy, we're no having a problem today, we're all chilled. You're not. And so you see it, and we don't, or you hear it, and we don't. And I think, so it's back to the, because this is receiver, recorder, transmitter, video player, satellite navigation system, best computer ever, not this one, but do you understand where I'm coming from? This is everything that we've created, and it's been created by this. And so I think it's from within that people see it in their own perception. But I don't think that means they're not seeing it, whatever they're seeing. But I also think that you could be the trigger that causes. So what I'm saying is, with my stone tape projector, how much electricity do I put into the wall? I don't know. 20,000 volts, 1.5 volts, or in between that. So I don't know. But we are experimenting. And we have had some rather interesting images, because we do it on, because I do a stage show with Derek Pecora, called Psychic and Science, and he's the psychic and I'm supposed to be the scientist. And we've got this machine so it's a haunted theatre, but of course we don't know which part of the theatre holds the recording, if it does, or whether it's got an actual intelligence that's haunting it. So we plug it into the wall, we put so much electricity in it, we have a, I can't remember the machine.
Vandergraaf.
No, and the other one. Ed? He's gone. I can't, you wind it up and it puts 20,000 volts into the wall. It's got 2 balls and it's like a Vandergraaf, but it's not. It's a Wimshurst machine.
Oh, blimey.
Yeah. And basically we put the electricity into the wall. We have blue light, whatever they're called, ultraviolet, and plasma bulbs, different coloured plasma bulbs, and a dry ice machine, which of course is silica. And we have all of this, and then what we do is we zap it into the wall, put the electricity in, and then up goes the smoke and the lights, and we get the public to do Robbie Williams' job. We get everybody to get their phones out and take photographs of the smoke. And you want to see, I know if you stare at the clouds long enough you'll see a face, but you want to see some of the images that we've got. It's quite remarkable is the only word I can give you. We have had some very interesting, but it's in its infancy. But at least I'm trying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, I'm trying to do it, but I don't know, should it be 1.5 volts? How much, so when you're stressed, how much energy do you, I don't know. How do you know that?
Well, we're going to stick a meter on him.
Exactly, immediately tonight. But I think it's something that needs to go farther.
There's a lot of work to be done.
With a university, a science department of a school even,
Yeah.
that would want to take, but of course you see the school, no,
No.
frighten the kids, or, you know what I mean? Because it's scary,
Yeah.
and it's not scary.
It's a recording, so you could do something similar with like a Stradivarius
Go on.
and get the music out of it, the music that has been played on it.
Oh yeah, because wood, again, has particles, crystals. I tell you what, when next time the sun shines, which it has been doing a little bit, walk down the road, just look at the yellow lines, and look at the thousands and thousands of particles of silica that are shining at you. Look at the granite, next piece of granite, sorry?
I said please don't.
What, look at the double yellow lines? Oh, sorry, that's not okay, but you want to see the silica in paint?
Yeah.
In cars, here we go, haunted cars. I don't know, but I think it's a possibility. But I need a scientist to come along and say, no, you couldn't possibly. But how else are people seeing these images in their houses that don't respond to them? Yes, they might be on a different dimension or something, so they don't see them. I don't know, that's the other theory, of course. But what a subject. What a fascinating subject it is.
You think you're opening a can and getting something out of it, but you're getting...
Oh, exactly, yeah. But trying to get anybody to really accept what I'm saying isn't. Yeah, you see, that's mini DV. That's got silica tape inside it with iron oxide, and that's where the recording comes from. But we can accept that. But I'm only saying similar in buildings and other places. But no, couldn't possibly be. No, nothing like that. Yes, it is.
You get universities that are dealing with science. You get a university that's dealing with theology.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it must be somewhere in the middle.
I think so. I mean, we've got a parapsychology department at Derby University, but don't want to know me. No, not him. Isn't it silly?
In the 18 years I've done it, I've always known it as spirit, but not ghost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree with you.
The spirit belongs to somebody.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, exactly. And it should have gone somewhere, but some of them haven't. And of course, the other thing is, what we should also be doing is really trying to help them. Because some of them genuinely are trapped here and don't want to be here.
We've done many a time.
Yeah. I'm thinking of starting a new society called the RSPC, Richard's Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Ghosts. Because without being funny, it's a bit like going to the zoo. We're looking for ghosts. Oh, there's one here. You want to see it, but poor thing, perhaps should be gone. They should be gone. They shouldn't be. Those that want to be here, fine. But there are lots of them there, as I've said, that are frightened to move on for whatever reason. That actually need. But then, who am I, or who are we to tell them? By the way, it's all right. There isn't a hell waiting for you full of.
You've had things like mothers looking for their children.
Yes,
And
yes.
that sort of thing. And
Yes,
once they find their children, he helps them move back
Wonderful,
to the
and that's tremendous.
And that mother knows
Yeah.
that they really can't because they can sense it.
You know, that's tremendous, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we're all, you know, nutters and aren't we?
This is all new to me because I'm a one-to-one specialist.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
but this is something different in my life now, and I'm enjoying it. You know.
Yeah, it is a fascinating subject and it's real. But you try telling the world.
Sally, something is buzzing around on there.
Do you think it's a bird?
I don't know, because it came in from the right hover and went back out again.
We thought there was a bird in there.
It came in here.
Oh, gosh.
And then went back out. Not a dog.
Any questions?